Elden Ring. It's my favorite game of all time. The incredible open world, the build variety, and the deep lore are some of the best in any game, full stop. But the one thing that really keeps me coming back time and time again are the boss fights. In a series famed for its bosses, I believe Elden Ring has produced some of the best fights in the entire Souls series. However, not all bosses are created equally, and even a game as good as Elden Ring has its fair share of duds. And with Shadow of the Erdtree releasing 1 year ago today, what better time to delve into the good and the bad of Elden Ring boss design. Now keep in mind, this list is just my opinion. These bosses will vary pretty drastically from person to person and build to build. But I've beaten all these bosses at least a dozen times with a variety of different builds. I've even beaten them all at level 1, so I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on my opinions of each boss. I'll be covering all Remembrance bosses, and any boss mandatory to reach a Remembrance, so I'll be discussing these bosses shown on screen. With all that being said, this video's long enough already, so let's jump into every Elden Ring boss ranked from worst to best. Number 40, Jori, Elder Inquisitor. Guarding the Abyssal Woods, we have the Abyssal Bitch, Jori, Elder Inquisitor. The amalgamation of all the worst traits of FromSoft bosses. Projectile spam, gank, teleporting, get off me attacks. Quite literally, everything I hate in a boss is present here. It's not even a hard fight. You can chain backstabs for a free win, but fighting normally still isn't an actual challenge. You just gotta get a lucky run where you have more opportunities to wail on a small health bar. I guess it's apropos that the worst boss in the game would be the gatekeeper to the worst area in the game. Number 39, Godskin Duo. Perhaps the most infamous boss in Elden Ring, the Godskin Duo represents everything wrong with FromSoft gank fights. The best gank fights in the series typically include ways to create temporary one-on-one encounters, which are your opportunity to get offensive. This is done by including terrain to break up aggro, and by having one boss be more fast and aggressive than the other. Godskin Duo abandons all these principles, instead opting for two fast and aggressive enemies that have the ability to break the terrain in their second phase. Additionally, both have access to projectiles, meaning that if you manage to isolate one of the Godskins, the other can still make their presence known by hitting you with a fireball that you likely can't see coming. It's unfortunate that this fight even exists, because I think individually the Godskin Noble and Apostle are fun fights. Unfortunately, they're crammed together with no changes or considerations for how they might interact together, leaving us with this stain on their reputation. Number 38, Fire Giant. Fire Giant's a boss completely bereft of anything I'd consider fun, and somehow he manages to land on both the frustrating and outright boring sides of unfun. The most obvious thing in this fight is the giant's size. Shocking, I know. He's massive. Massive? He's massive, making it incredibly difficult to see what's going on in the fight. Only after dozens of playthroughs am I familiar enough with audio cues and slight movements that tip me off to what he's doing, so I'm able to react. The other obvious thing about this boss is the massive HP pool. This is mitigated in Phase 1 because of the ankle weak point, but Phase 2's weak point is his eye, which any melee build is just straight up not able to reach, barring a stance break or a specific attack, leaving you to chop away at his legs or maybe his hands if you're patient enough. So at a foundational level, this boss is flawed, and guess what? His moveset does nothing to mitigate this. His Fire Breath attack lingers for so long that if you get caught in it, you're probably getting hit twice and dying. He can spawn homing fireballs that detonate when you're in proximity and can one-shot most builds. This is going to force you to hop on Torrent and completely disengage in the fight so you can manually detonate the fireballs in a safe manner. Oh, and speaking of Torrent, you're going to be using him a lot, because Fire Giant loves to roll halfway across the arena for you to chase him. At the very least, the spectacle and lore of the fight is cool, and his phase transition cutscene is awesome, but that's far from enough to compensate for a boss that has little to no redeeming qualities in terms of gameplay. Number 37, Metter, Mother of Fingers. I don't have much nice to say about Metter in any respect. First off, it's a massive boss, so we're dealing with shitty camera controls and janky hitboxes, because some of the moves make its entire body a hitbox. We've also got gank, Sure, they're just little finger creepers, but it still makes a fight just a little more annoying. That stupid ass phase 2 black hole laser, is there any way to dodge it? Because I genuinely don't know. I don't think I've ever dodged it, and I've seen people literally mod the game and they still can't dodge it, so I guess it's just undodgeable, which is total bullshit. The boss loves to turn to its side to attack, often leading to the most annoying attacks and making it harder to reach its weak point at the front. Even the run back is annoying, blowing on that stupid ass horn every time. I literally don't think I have a single positive thing to say about this boss. Oh wait! The arena's pretty. Number 36, Regal Ancestor Spirit. Oh my god, this fight is so boring! A complete lack of challenge compared to what we just faced in Radahn. It's a remembrance boss, but for some reason it's repeated earlier in the game. It heals itself, it runs away, it's high off the ground so many of your attacks just completely miss, and its actual moveset isn't even fun. Easy to dodge attacks and lingering AoEs. I initially had this guy higher on the list, but after refighting it, I'm reminded of just how uninteresting this boss is. I'll give it props for the vibes. I mean, the arena's cool, the colors are pleasant, and the music is nice, but that's just not enough to save Regal Ancestor Spirit from placing low on this list. Number 35, Lich Dragon Fortisax. Fortisax is based on the template of ancient dragons that we encounter several times throughout the game. A template that, at its core, sucks. I mean, you just can't hit these things, man. Their heads are too far off the ground, so you have to attack their legs, but uh-oh, you can't lock onto their legs. Okay, well, at least you can try hitting them there with some free roam camera control, but uh-oh, not with Fortisax, because standing under him puts you at the threat of timed lightning strikes. This, combined with the branching lightning that results from the water in the arena, and you're just straight up going to get hit if you stand under Fortisax. You can certainly work around this. I mean, I do it by going in over leveled and just tanking damage, but it's clear that the game is incentivizing you to try and attack the dragon head on, which we've already established is really hard to do for most melee builds. I've used range against this guy before, and it's a piece of cake, while melee makes you want to rip your hair out, so Fortisax just does not strike a proper balance. Fortisax does have a few attacks exclusive to him, and they look pretty cool and are very satisfying to dodge. Oh my god, and his arena is also covered in these clouds of Deathblight, a notoriously fun mechanic that everyone enjoys. So yeah, if anything, Fortisax is just a downgrade from an already unfun template of dragon fights that are reused multiple times throughout the game, a fitting end to the equally annoying Fia quest. Number 34. Sir Gideon Ofnir, the All-Knowing! I'll be honest, on my first playthrough, I was super excited when I saw this guy blocking my path. I felt betrayed because I thought we were bros, and I was ready for our lovers to enemies battle. He was even using the spells from the bosses I defeated, showing how he was just using me this whole time. Years later, after actually comprehending the lore better, I probably should have seen this coming. But then imagine my reaction as he beats me into the ground with the most frustrating kit of spells known to man. I swear, the Glintblade Phalanx and Rings of Light combo haunts me to this day. Literally everything wrong with NPC fights is present in Gideon. Unlimited stamina to roll through attacks, unlimited FP with max casting speed to force you to dodge like a maniac, access to healing. It's just the perfect concoction of frustrating gameplay. And what's equally as frustrating is his propensity to just get steamrolled. If you get Gideon on the back foot and don't give him a window to attack, you could easily mow through him before he gets to do anything. This is aided by the speech he gives you on your first attempt, basically giving you a free head start in the fight. But give him an inch and he will take a marathon, and it will be the most rage-inducing marathon this game has the ability to conjure. Number 33, Fia's Champions. Fia's Champs consist of 5 NPC fights arranged gauntlet style, finishing with a 3v1 gank. If you play online, you can find other players' builds, but if you're offline, you get the same generic NPCs each time, with a couple minor NPCs thrown in there. Look, this video is going to be long enough as it is. I don't think we need to spend any more time on this lame-ass fight. Number 32, Mimic Tier. And rounding out our trios of NPC fights, we have the Mimic tier. The Dark Link fight of Elden Ring is cool in concept, with how diverse each build can be. The Mimic tier could become a different boss on every playthrough, but in execution it's really not that simple. Every NPC fight just kinda feels the same to me. The only real difference is, do they do ranged attacks or melee attacks? That's really the extent to the change. Mimic tier's fine, like it's usually pretty easy. I mean, you know your build better than anybody else, so you know the strengths and weaknesses of it. So the enjoyment of the fight really doesn't come down to a challenge, but the moment of, oh cool, it me. But that feeling just doesn't carry over to repeat playthroughs. I mean, most of the time I just unequip my gear before the fight and then put it back on to make the fight go quicker so I can get to the actually interesting things in the game. Number 31, Divine Beast Dancing Lion. Jesus Christ, what a mess of a fight. In a game full of literal dragons, giants, and creatures the size of buildings, how is this damn Chinese dragon the thing that has the worst camera control? You just can't read this guy's attacks. He's too fast darting around the arena, his body is so inhumanoid, and he's constantly on top of you. You can barely see. Like, sure, it's cool, commanding 3 elements, a totally unique design, and an awesome opening cutscene, that's all great, but the fight itself is an absolute clusterfuck. I never feel like I beat the lion because I've mastered the fight. I always feel like I just got lucky, and compared to every other boss yet to come, that is just a far less fun experience. Number 30, Putrescent Knight. Bland at best, frustrating at worst. Kinda like the entire Stone Coffin Fissure. The Putrescent Knight is one of those bosses that can vastly differ in quality based on your build. Does your weapon have reach? Yes? Good, you can hit the boss. No? Sorry, no damage for you. The horse makes it too high up, so a lot of your attacks will just whiff. Apart from that, the moveset is kind of whatever. Its most unique move is that weird spinny attack featuring the horse from the Legend of Zelda series. A fine move, sometimes a little janky because of the tracking or the horse hitbox. But does it have to spam the attack like 5 times a fight? I mean, give it a rest. The boomerang is cool, the ghost flame's whatever, lame phase transition where it gets like 1 new attack in the moveset, but whatever. I mean, I just can't be bothered to write anymore about such a nothing fight. Number 29, Ancient Dragon Man. As far as NPC fights go, the Dragon Man is on the more fun side of the spectrum, as he makes use of the Dragon Hunter's Great Katana and its unique skill, as well as a few Dragon Communion incantations, some of which may be a touch overtuned. But at the end of the day, it's an NPC fight, a little more than a speed bump on your trip through the Land of Shadows. Number 28.
Needle Knight's Ladder, Dryleaf Dane, and our allies.
Okay, so technically this isn't a boss fight, like there's no health bar or anything, but it's a mandatory fight with story significance against multiple named characters, so I'm gonna count it. Sue me. This fight is the conclusion to the best thread of side quests FromSoft has ever done, in my opinion. In games full of contrived and cryptic quests that almost necessitate the use of a guide, Shadow of the Erdtree simply asks you to explore the areas and talk to the NPCs, like a normal game would. As we play, all the threads slowly unfurl. We learn character motivations, the web of lies is exposed, and some of the biggest mysteries of the lore are revealed as we learn who's siding with who. And it all culminates in this fight. And it's abysmal dog shit. Yeah, the story's great, but at the end of the day, it's a gank NPC fight with late game DLC scaling, so it's a recipe for disaster. That being said, depending on how you progress the quests, you can stack the deck in your favor. The fight can be anything from a 5v3 with you at a disadvantage to a 3v2 in your favor. Well, I suppose you could do a 1v5, but that sounds like literal hell on earth, so, don't do that. The NPCs are all unique, and we've formed connections to all of them throughout the DLC, meaning we get unique movesets and fighting styles for each, and we have some emotional investment in the fight. But at the end of the day, this is a frustrating fight being hard carried by a great story. At the very least, it's anything but boring. Number 27, Commander Gaius. Gaius is actually not that bad of a boss if we're being honest. He's got complex combos, a cool variety of gravity spells, and a unique feel as he incorporates his mount into combat. Sure, some of his combos, particularly the long one with the boar, can be a bit tough to dodge if you aren't spaced properly, and his phase transition dive can be very tough to read, but those criticisms wouldn't put a boss nearly this low on the list. But man, that damn charge attack! It is so inconsistent. I feel like 90% of the time I'm getting hit by it, and there's just nothing I can do. And look, if he did it once right at the start of the fight, whatever, it wouldn't be too bad. But he spams this attack. He'll pull this out at point blank range and it's just impossible to dodge. Gaius might be the only boss I actually found easier at level 1, purely because late rolling actually gives you a chance to dodge this, and even then it's not 100%. It is shocking to me that this hitbox hasn't been shrunk or something, man, because it absolutely tanks Gaius' ranking on this list. Number 26.
I am Melania, Blade of Mikola.
Melania has garnered a reputation since Elden Ring's release, a reputation as one of, if not the hardest boss in FromSoft's catalog. Naturally, with such a difficulty comes polarizing opinions, and it can be hard to sift between valid complaints and mere skill issues. So I stand here, as someone who has beaten Melania a dozen times over, who has the ability to beat her in one attempt, who has beaten her at level 1, and I say that Melania is a poorly designed boss. I know that statement is inevitably going to upset a lot of people watching, but remember, this is not a skill issue. I am better at the game than you are. So let's start with the good. Presentation, aura, lore, etc. It's all great, as it is for most remembrances. The other major positive I can give Melania is her basic kit. Her sword swings, combos, grab attacks, spear attacks, it's all very good. Good tells that reward proper timing and positioning, but that's about all the good I can say. Melania is not an Elden Ring boss, at least not in design. Much like how Demon of Hatred is a Bloodborne boss trapped in Sekiro, Melania is a Sekiro boss trapped in Elden Ring. She's just not like the other bosses. She staggers incredibly easily, she's passive until you engage, she can cancel and switch up attacks mid-combo depending on how you react. I've heard top players say that this is why they love Melania, because she's so interactable and varied and they can take advantage of that. But to me, a good, not great player, it makes the fight just feel less rewarding. When fighting any other boss, you go through the gameplay loop of fight boss, learn patterns, dodge in the next fight, and repeat until you win. But with Melania, this feels so much harder when she changes her patterns, leading to the player getting hit even when it feels like they were playing right. She also has hyper armor on certain attacks, meaning she can't be staggered out of them, and that's fine when it's limited to certain moves. For example, that swinging kick, that's a fine move, but the issue circles back to Melania changing her patterns, because the exact same attack can have no hyper armor sometimes, but hyper armor another time. From what I can tell, it's based on how often you hit her, but there's really no tell in the move itself or any gauge to show if she will or will not be staggered when you hit her. This leads to situations where you go into attack thinking you'll be safe because she'll stagger, only to get caught in a combo and take massive damage. Moving off her unique mechanics, let's talk about the most obvious criticism, the one that everybody has some kind of critique of: waterfowl dance. Even after learning to dodge most of this attack on a pretty consistent basis, I hold firm with the opinion that this is an absolutely terrible move. The way you dodge this attack is in no way intuitive, and that's inarguable. Without a guide or pure luck, you will never dodge this attack with any type of consistency. It's an attack that fundamentally alters how you fight her because you live in constant fear of waterfowl. You have to stay at a distance to make the attack easier to dodge, so with every hit you're dashing or rolling away, preparing for a potential waterfowl, and that just drags out the fight because your offensive gambits are more limited, and it also sets you up to get hit by Melania's other attacks. Not to mention, if she decides to bust out waterfowl in certain parts of the arena, you are just completely screwed. And getting hit by waterfowl is just about the worst thing that can happen to you. Chances are you just die outright, but even if you manage to survive, Melania probably just recovered about a third of her HP bar, because for some reason, she heals every time she lands a hit. This is probably the mechanic that pisses me off the most, because it's the most blatant fuck you artificial difficulty in the fight. As far as I can tell, there's no lore reason she can do this. There's no explanation for why she can heal on hit. It was done purely to make the fight harder, and it's so disheartening to see your work chipping down Malenia's health bar be reversed in a matter of moments. And all of this is just in Phase 1. I think Phase 2 amplifies a lot of the issues we've already mentioned. In Phase 2, many of Malenia's attacks can afflict Scarlet Rot, which honestly isn't that big of a deal. Like, unless you get caught with a big attack, you probably aren't going to catch the Rot, and if that happens, you're probably already dead. What I do have a problem with are her two big Phase 2 attacks, the Scarlet Aeonia and the Clone attack. Starting with Aeonia, this attack seems fine on paper. It's a big attack, generally easy to dodge, but with major consequences if you fail to dodge. The issue is Malenia stays in the bloom for a really long time, leaving herself open to range attacks. You can easily chunk her Phase 2 HP while she's completely defenseless, which seems antithetical to her design as an overtly difficult boss. And doing damage for free like this is just unrewarding and unbecoming of FromSoft boss philosophy. Her clone attack is also detrimental in similar ways to Waterfowl Dance, as dodging it is very unintuitive, it forces you to try and keep your distance, and getting hit is extremely detrimental. Look, I've yapped for long enough at this point. I hope you can see why I dislike Malenia. She's a hard fight, but hard in ways that compromise on fun and create a challenge that is not rewarding to conquer, but rather tedious to survive. Number 25, Red Wolf of Radagon. The Red Wolf of Radagon is a boss I'm generally indifferent towards. I mean, it's a fine fight, no BS, it's all pretty good. The issue is its small health pool and its relative ease. It's designed to be a glass cannon, but even weaker builds can kind of mulch through the boss with no problem. In the footage I'm showing, I literally have to stop attacking the wolf just so it can show a bit more of its moveset. It's all well designed, the moves are well telegraphed, and the timings on the sword swings can pose a little bit of a threat. My one criticism would be the wolf's ability to layer delayed glint blades with its sword swings, creating undodgeable scenarios for the player. The boss just lacks the challenge and complexity to be placed higher on the list, and its reuse throughout the game is evidence that FromSoft really does not consider Red Wolf of Radagon to be a main boss. It just so happens to be blocking Renala, so it gets a spot on this list. Number 24, Estelle, Natural Born of the Void. Estelle is a weird case where the boss has a lot of tropes I don't like in a fight. Big AoEs, running away, BS hitboxes, etc. But with Estelle, I still hate them, don't get me wrong. Like, this fight is incredibly frustrating at points, but there's enough good here to make up for it. I love the opening to the fight. Dodging the Mega Laser feels so cool once you've mastered the timing. It's like you're dodging a bullet in the Matrix. The second phase when Estelle uses the Meteor spell is incredibly cinematic as you try dodging the random rain of rubble. However, there still is that very prevalent element of annoyance, particularly in the teleporting around and the terrible grab that seems like it can get you from anywhere. Not to mention that there's a good chance you won't even see the grab coming with the random teleporting. Estelle could have easily found itself closer to the bottom of the list, and believe me, with some builds, this fight is an absolute slog. But there's enough here to like about the presentation, lore, and elements of the battle that push it higher up on the list. Number 23, Commander Nile. Nile is a weird case for me. I usually dread coming back to fight him every playthrough. I generally consider him to be a bad boss whenever I think about or discuss him. However, when I do actually fight him, I end up enjoying myself far more than I expect. Is this a case of low expectations being easily exceeded? Maybe. But I think it's way more likely I just have PTSD from my first playthrough where he beat me into the ground. I used to struggle so hard with the 2 Summon Knights at the beginning of the fight, and then just not have enough resources to beat Nile afterwards. But as my skills have improved and I've become more familiar with the fight, I actually think the summons are not that big of a problem. During the opening of the fight, Nile is completely passive, and the Shield Knight isn't terribly aggressive either. You could pretty easily run in and shred the Sword Knight's health before he can even do anything. Then just stay patient and take out the Shield Knight one-on-one. And from there, it's just you and Nile, and that's a great fight. He hits hard and has large AoEs, but they're all well telegraphed and easy to dodge with proper timing. He has an added layer of complexity based on your spacing and positioning. usually following the lightning kick with either a swing of his lance or a backwards poke with the pommel depending on where you roll to. This allows for a higher skill ceiling, where you can bait him into a specific attack and then move to an area where he's defenseless for easy damage. I would say his super move is too easy to deal with. Sure, if he hits you it's devastating, but realistically, he should not be hitting you once you realize what he's doing. And I think the punish window after is just far too great, given the relative ease of dodging the attack. This makes the fight feel less involved as you just wail on him. But with that being said, I think Nile is actually a great fight, dragged down by unneeded summons. The summons hurt his ranking, but they're not too bad to deal with once you know what you're doing, and Nile himself is great, pushing him higher on the list than I expected going into this. Number 22, Elden Beast. Some of you may be confused by this entry, as Elden Beast and Radagon are a single fight. While that may be true, after mulling it over, I've decided to split them up for this ranking. My reasoning is that the two fight nothing alike, they're completely different entities, and they have a pretty significant gap in quality, so trying to combine the two into one ranking could get messy. Also, separating them gives us a nice even 40 just for the extra incentive. But getting into Elden Beast, he finds himself significantly lower than Radagon on this list. The main reason is that his moveset is just full of annoyances that drag down an already uninspired kit. Starting with the good, the arena, the music, the design of the beast all give off the impression that you are truly battling a god, or at least something not from this world. Additionally, most of the beast's attacks are well designed. His sword swings feel impactful but telegraphed, the nebula explosions look beautiful and apply significant pressure without forcing disengagement from the fight, and the blade beams he uses at distance are so fun to dodge as you chase down the beast. However, the bad in this fight really dragged it down in this ranking. First off, the running away. This is a problem that a lot of big bosses have in this game. I assume it's done to try and keep the player in front of the boss so its offense is more readable and diverse, but that just does not work for a number of reasons. 1. Even when you're in front of Elden Beast, he's too big for the camera to capture, so you can barely tell what he's doing. And 2. The arena is big and the boss runs away so frequently that it feels like you spend more time chasing down Elden Beast than you actually do fighting it. This issue was kinda fixed by adding Torrent, but it's clear the fight wasn't designed with the horse in mind, as it's much harder to dodge ranged attacks while on horseback. Then there's Elden Stars. Even after being nerfed all those years ago, it's still a terrible move. Again, it just forces you to run around so you can't actually fight the boss, and any move, regardless of how minuscule the damage, that can't be dodged just feels cheap to me. And don't even get me started about fighting this thing at level 1. Elden Stars made me want to launch my controller through the drywall. Overall, Elden Beast was a flawed experience from the very start, and the band-aid fixes they've made over time have done little to actually fix its core problems, making this boss fall flat as the finale to such a phenomenal game. Number 21, Royal Knight Loretta. This version of Loretta is really just the appetizer to her true form that you'll find in the Erdtree. You know, like 30 hours later. So she finds herself in the middle of the pack on this list. Her moveset is a more simple version of the Erdtree fight, but the fundamentals are still here, and Loretta's fundamentals are plenty enjoyable. Easy to read attacks, no weird timings or insane windups, very standard boss fight. The delayed glint blade can frame trap you with her halberd swings, and her difficulty is on the easy side, as she's in a weird spot progression wise. But ultimately, there's not much to say about this fight. I'll be saving that for her true form in a few entries. Number 20, Godfrey, First Elden Lord. Shadow Godfrey is obviously just an appetizer for the true fight against the first Elden Lord that we'll see later on this list. But most of what makes the first phase of that fight great is also present here. Godfrey dashes around the arena, stomping the ground to create cones of spiked rocks that must be jumped over, making use of a dodge mechanic that is seldom used in Elden Ring. This attack is really great, as Godfrey typically leaves just enough time for the player to land a jump attack if their weapon is fast enough, allowing you to turn the tables on Godfrey and turn his offensive gambit into a punish opportunity in one fluid motion. Godfrey also makes use of complex combos with his axe that require good timing and directional input to dodge. It's a quality fight, but I want to save more of what I have to say for his entry later in this list. Number 19, Rennala, Queen of the Full Moon. Rennala, more than any other boss, is a tale of two halves. Her first phase is really not much of a fight, more like a child extermination. Order 66 style, as you attack the specific child surrounded by the golden ring of light. Once you get 3, Renala becomes vulnerable for you to beat up on until she dies, and if your build is strong enough you could easily do this in a single cycle. The second phase is where the fight picks up, as you fight Renala in her prime. As far as pure caster fights go, this is relatively enjoyable. Renala never unfairly stacks spells on top of each other to create undodgeable scenarios, and the player is consistently rewarded for getting in close, as Renala is easily staggerable and her offense is greatly limited at melee range. This is a double-edged sword, however, as to compensate for this, Renala often runs away or uses get off me attacks to keep you at bay. This causes the fight to drag on and leads to significant stretches where the player is getting little to no offense in. This problem is exacerbated by Renala's summons, who don't pose much of a threat as long as you're patient, but they serve to elongate the fight and distract you from actually getting to Renala. Much like the moon she studies, Renala is a fight with great potential that is sullied by annoyances that only serve to harm the experience. Number 18, Romina, Saint of the Bud. Romina has always felt a little out of place to me. She doesn't really feel like a DLC boss, let alone a late DLC boss. She's just incredibly easy, and I don't think that's a hot take or anything. I just rarely die to Romina. She doesn't do anything bad really, her attacks are well telegraphed, her design is super cool and unique, and she manages to be a pretty big boss without any camera or hitbox issues. But her combos are also very simple, and she just isn't the most interesting fight. Pretty standard B tier boss if you ask me. Number 17, Loretta, Knight of the Erdtree. Loretta is such a fundamentally sound boss. She doesn't really excel in any particular category, but not every boss needs to be extraordinary. In this case, Loretta has attack timings that are easy to read, a good diverse moveset, fun both up close and at range, and she poses enough of a threat to be a memorable challenge. Again, she's not breaking new ground or anything, but there's literally nothing wrong with her fight. Everything that she set out to do was accomplished, and sometimes that's all you need to have a fun boss fight. Number 16, Dragon Lord Placidusax. Of all the fights on this list, Dragon Lord Placidusax is the one I had the hardest time articulating my thoughts on. There are many things to love about this fight. The mystique behind it, literally a fight outside of time, extremely hidden compared to all other bosses. The presentation from the opening cutscene to the visually striking red lightning to several jaw-dropping attacks. If there was one word to describe what I love about the fight, it would be aura. However, this fight does fall into the many traps of FromSoft fights at this magnitude, chief among them being the camera. This fight is unbearable to try and see what's going on. You really just have to know what Placidusax is going to do from very small movements, which will take many fights to memorize, because you're only seeing a fraction of his body. Additionally, for such a massive enemy, Placidusax really loves to move around. Typically, you want to fight the boss head on, which is reinforced by Placidusax having many attacks that punish fighting him at the hip. However, his body is constantly shifting and moving in such a way where you're unable to control where you fight, meaning you're oftentimes fighting him in places where you'll be punished or can't capitalize on offensive openings. This issue is alleviated a bit more in Phase 2, as weirdly enough, teleporting is easier to follow than his normal movement. The second phase is incredibly epic and intense, forcing quick reactions and small windows of offense that must be capitalized on. His teleporting spree is often concluded by one of his super attacks, Placidusax's Ruin, which looks sick as hell, but is pretty unintuitive to dodge unless you know to run to the side. Ultimately, the fight with the Dragon Lord is a mixed bag of great spectacle and a fun Phase 2, combined with a messy, unreadable Phase 1 that exposes the worst of FromSoft camera controls. Number 15, Godric the Grafted. Ah, good old Godric, the red-headed stepchild of the Golden Order. Godric's presence is intimidating when we first encounter him, as he's the first shardbearer most players are likely to see. He has a monstrous appearance, adorned with dozens of wretched limbs standing beside a slain dragon. The intimidation is taken to a whole nother level in Phase 2 when he takes that dragon, rips its head off, and grafts it to his arm to use as a flamethrower. However, as we explore the game and learn the lore of Godric, we see him as a petty, childish, weak man trying to use grafting to supplement his own lack of strength. And this is reflected in the fight itself, as he's far easier than Margit, with less complex attacks and far more downtime between attacks for the player to get damage in. This is balanced by the fact that his attacks typically have large AoEs and are much harder to read because of his many limbs. I do find that to be more on the artificial side of difficulty, but that's certainly fitting into Godrick's character as a man artificially enhancing his strength, so I'll let it slide. His Storm AoE is a tad bit annoying, acting as a get-off-me attack without posing much threat, and his scripted Fire Breath attack in Phase 2 is far too easy to avoid, allowing for massive damage to start Phase 2, meaning the fight is usually over before Godrick can even show off his cool dragon attacks. He serves his purpose on a first playthrough, when Spectacle and Intimidation can overwhelm less skilled players, but on repeat playthroughs, he's just far too easy to steamroll for him to remain that interesting of a fight. Number 14, Erdtree Avatar. This fight starts normally enough, pretty basic moves, the thorns can be a bit annoying, but nothing is really standing out for better or for worse. Then you land a hit and notice how little health this guy has. Erdtree Avatar succeeds as being one of the only bosses to actually hang their head low enough to consistently hit it. Before you know it, the health bar hits 0 and you seemingly land the fatal blow, only for it to re-emerge angrier than before. See, Erdtree Avatar is one of those bosses more interested in telling a story than they are at giving an incredible fight. Erdtree Avatar succeeds at this because the gameplay isn't actively detrimental to the experience and actually complements the story being told. The story is one of desperation. The flower starts lunging at you wildly. You can tell it's hurt and weakened by its inability to cast its signature Land of Shadow incantation with as much power as it did in Phase 1. Despite this, it's still trying to fight. Then, you'll most likely easily dispatch of the second health bar, and once again the boss re-emerges, actively wilting now, visibly hurt, but still willing to fight for its own life and for the great rune it protects. It literally falls back onto its last resort, releasing all the energy in its body into a massive explosion of golden light, only to collapse for more free damage. Despite how many enemies we slay on this journey, none truly capture the desperate will to survive quite like the Erdtree Avatar. Its simple moveset and relative ease cap it from reaching the top 10, but its visual storytelling is something I commend. I respect you, O Golden Sunflower. Number 13.
Margit the Fell.
The fight that started it all. Margit serves as a first gateway blocking story progression for most players, and therefore is designed as a sort of tutorial for Elden Ring combat. His moveset is full of the typical tropes we see from many other bosses on this list. His attacks are telegraphed and delayed to a comical degree, punishing panic rolls but rewarding proper positioning while creating openings for punishes mid-windup. He has options for both close and long-range combat, as well as multiple quick distance closers that prevent the player from camping him out. His moveset isn't incredibly diverse, which holds him back from reaching higher on this list, but it's perfect for this stage of the game, as it allows players to quickly get a grasp on his telegraphs so they can learn the fundamentals of combat. His fight is an absolute struggle for first-time players, encouraging them to explore the world and fight him once they've gained some experience and upgraded their build. It's a steep difficulty wall so early in the game, but for those emboldened by the flame of ambition, Margit teaches you all the skills you'll need to become Elden Lord. Number 12.
King Morgott. Last of all kings.
Despite being the same person, Morgott really fights nothing like Margit. He's much quicker, dashing around the arena, utilizing a combination of fast sword and spectral dagger swings interwoven with powerful delayed hammer and conjured spear attacks. Compared to Margit, who is much more methodical in both movement and attack pattern, Morgott can overwhelm the player with offensive intensity. He's constant in motion, not giving up a single moment of respite. This makes for an intense battle where the player is more often than not on the back foot, only receiving incredibly small windows for counterattacks. But herein lies Morgott's weakness. He's a glass cannon. Even relative to Margit, you can shred through his HP bar, requiring only a handful of offensive gambits to find success. It's here where Morgott, in many ways, acts as a sort of benchmark of progression for the player's skill entering the late game. Their skills are checked in a similar way Margit checked them in the beginning of the game, but with a different twist: restraint. Margit forces the player to restrain themselves from panic rolling during his windups, but Morgott forces the player to restrain themselves from attacking until the moment is right, and that restraint is rewarded by big damage. But alternatively, lack restraint and you are more harshly punished by more devastating combos. And more often than not, because of Morgott's small health pool and the greater power of the player's build, Morgott is generally easier than Margit. This fight shows the player how far they've come while setting the stage for what's to come in the late game. Morga is in the back of their mind as a reminder that even with the late game difficulty curve, to keep fanning that flame of ambition, and the Elden Ring will be within your reach. Number 11. Baal the Dread. Baal struggles with a lot of the problems I've discussed so far regarding big dragon bosses. The camera is too close, it's too hard to hit his head, he has some janky hitboxes, particularly with his fire breath attacks. But at the end of the day,
Curse you, Baal!
oh my god, you see that shit? He's flying through the sky shooting lasers and blowing shit up, oh my god! Holy, is that fucking crazy? Oh my god, that grab attack is crazy, he's going nuts! Holy shit, he's flying through the sky with meters falling at him! I can't handle this! This guy's fucking crazy, holy shit! The greatest spectacle of any fight in FromSoft history, Egon's the GOAT, Baal is rad as hell, the fight speaks for itself. Number 10. Mohg, Lord of Blood. Ah, Mohg, the Lord of Blood, the redeemed Mohg Lester, everyone's favorite blood cultist. He's a great boss, and a tough one at that. He still gives me trouble to this day. Mohg's presentation is great, feeling like you're fighting Satan himself. From his monstrous design, to his mausoleum arena, to his attacks literally consisting of flaming blood, everything about this guy is rad as hell. His moveset is also great, rewarding proper directioning on your rolls to avoid getting caught by swings of his trident or latent blood flame explosions. Phase 1 is a bit of a pushover, as he spends more time counting than he does actually fighting. In fact, if your DPS is high enough, you can straight up kill him before reaching Phase 2, which does lose him some points in my opinion, mainly because of how good Phase 2 Mohg is. Flying around with demonic bat wings, throwing blood everywhere, he continues to reward proper positioning, as well as rewarding attention to detail, as he has multiple attacks that look similar, but have to be dodged differently based on the small changes in the telegraphs. This is mainly seen on his blood throw and his trident slams. There are two main criticisms I have of this fight. First, his attack where he rains blood flame on himself, basically making it impossible to approach him. This just brings the action to a halt and throws off any kind of rhythm or momentum you might have been building up. The other criticism is that in Phase 2, the floor is covered in blood flame from basically all of Mohg's attacks, which can lead to significant damage and difficulty in dodging or positioning without the risk of damage or blood loss. Considering how much attention Mohg himself demands, it's really an unrealistic request to expect the player to be paying attention to both him and what's on the floor in the heat of combat. Despite this, much like Miquella, the Lord of Blood was able to steal my heart, and he finds himself in the top 10. Number 9. Messmer the Impaler. Often touted as the peak of Elden Ring boss design, we have the fan favorite Messmer the Impaler. But obviously, with this relatively low ranking, I don't quite agree. Let's start with the good. I love the character of Messmer, his tragic backstory, his strength in the lore, and his striking design accompanied by bright red flame is incredible. His intro cutscene and first phase voice acting is great, coming off as bored, like killing you is just another day in the office. And then his phase transition cutscene, he's mad and desperate, allowing his inner darkness out to try and defeat you, while at the same time displaying his hypocrisy of being devoid of light such as Messmer, tasked with wiping out all graceless creatures, showing how Marika was really just using Messmer and was ashamed of him. His moveset is generally pretty good, nothing crazy, not some revolution in quality, but good. Varied timings and tells, complex combos, all the stuff we've seen and will come to see in these higher rankings. His snake attacks in Phase 2 are extremely cool. A little hard to read what they're doing, but they're sick enough to where I'll give them the pass. The big thing holding Messmer back for me is his difficulty. I know many are going to heavily disagree with this, but I've always found Messmer quite easy. From my first playthrough to now, he's never posed much of a threat that I couldn't beat in a handful of tries. His orb attack at the start of both phases is very easy to dodge and leaves him wide open for big damage. His own DPS isn't very high, meaning you can kind of just panic roll through some combos and survive even if you get hit multiple times. And once we've hit this upper echelon of boss quality, a bog standard moveset just does not make up for the lack of challenge enough to reach S tier. Fight me in the comments! Number 8. Malekith the Black Blade. The edgiest fight in Elden Ring is also one of the most fun. Seriously, a wolf in all black armor, wielding a sword literally made of death. Some call it overkill, some call it cringe, But we furries, yes, we, me and you, know that this is badass. The first phase of the fight is arguably more difficult, as the Beast Clergyman's fast swings, use of projectiles, and dashes to both engage and disengage with melee are overwhelming and tough to learn. But once you learn to properly space them out, you can create consistent openings for damage. It's the best kind of Souls fight, one that rewards the player for doing everything right, staying patient and not greeting for damage, and taking the time to truly understand the patterns of the boss. Then phase 2 hits, and the player is once again overwhelmed. The offense is a bit slower, but now way more flashy and hits way harder. Maliketh's speed, dashing around the arena, jumping onto pillars, creating massive AoEs, it's all incredibly difficult to learn. His damage and Destined Death ability, which cuts your max HP, also makes it far more difficult to simply tank damage. Maliketh's HP is low. He's the truest glass cannon in Elden Ring, as he forces you to earn opportunities to fight back, which are then rewarded pretty handsomely. And just like the Beast Clergyman, Maliketh rewards proper spacing and positioning in his combos. Right at the start of phase 2 for example, with proper positioning, part of his combo will completely miss, allowing for quick damage. It's how the fight can be so well optimized without feeling unreadable or unfair ever, combined with the awesomeness of everything that earns Maliketh a spot so high on this list. Number 7. Radagon of the Golden Order. And here we are, all this time later and Elden Beast's first phase has appeared. Radagon is everything you'd want out of a final boss. A great challenge, lore significance, cool arena, and the best boss music in the game. The opening cutscene revealing that Radagon and Marika are the same person as the main theme of the game comes blaring in while we see Radagon armed with the very hammer that shattered the Elden Ring and started this whole journey. No cutscene drops such significant story revelations while getting you hyped as hell for a fight quite like this. Then the fight begins, and it lives up to the hype. Complex combos with slight but noticeable tells to telegraph mix-ups, ample windows for punishes when you recognize those telegraphs, my favorite of which is his grab attack, which gave me so much trouble on my early attempts, until I realized a very subtle movement in his shoulder just before he attacked, giving me all the information I needed to dodge the grab. The fight is visually and mechanically great, as golden shockwaves follow certain attacks, forcing proper positioning in order to find punishes. Then phase 2 starts, signaled with a stomp and a massive golden AoE slam. Then he starts teleporting around, throwing bolts of light, and doing the same attack that shattered the Elden Ring, except now he's trying to shatter your skull. It's an incredible fight. However, the fight is relatively short and easy, as it's really only the first half of a bigger battle. You can pretty easily script the fight with high enough damage, forcing the phase transition after a few hits, then forcing the Elden Ring breaker attack after that. Assuming you have good damage and stance pressure, the fight is basically done after that. I wish we just had more Radagon, because had he been exclusively the final boss, he could have easily found himself topping this list. Number 6. Star Scourge Radahn. Hell fucking yeah. Star Scourge Radahn is a sick fight, dude. The preamble to the fight, setting the scene with a ceremonial choir, the motley crew of warriors in the castle, all fighting for the glory of defeating the most powerful man to ever walk the lands between. The rousing speech, the cutscene, everything gets you amped for a war. Then the battle itself begins. Dodging arrows, summoning comrades, closing the distance feels like a battle all of itself, and it's amazing. And yeah, I typically don't use summons, but shut up, summons in the Radahn fight are cool as hell, so they don't count. All traditional criticisms I'd have for a boss are thrown out the window in this fight. Massive hitboxes, moving around a lot, one-shot attacks. I genuinely do not care when I'm in this fight because it all immerses you into the cinema of the encounter. This is not some honorable duel. This is 100 dudes versus one gorilla, except the gorilla knows gravity magic and is riding a tiny little horse. The chaos only adds to the experience, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Number 5. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy. The big gimmick boss fight has been a staple of the Souls games in the past, but none do it better than Rykard. The The fight centers around using the Serpent Hunter, a powerful weapon designed specifically to kill the god-devouring serpent that Rykard now inhabits. The fight is largely spectacle, yes, particularly in Phase 2's Hell Phase, which sees Rykard summon a rancor of flaming skulls while barraging the player with offense. You're basically forced to play purely defensive and just run away. But where in most fights this period would be tedious and boring, Rykard's constant offense and the grand scale strike the fear of God into the player as they stressfully avoid everything thrown at them. But beyond the epicness of the fight, the core mechanics are sound. The Serpent in Phase 1 has a simple moveset on paper, but throws in a number of mix-ups that have to be reacted to on the fly in order to dodge. Phase 2 is where the fight really shines, as Rykard's sword combos can be cancelled and interwoven from attacks by the Serpent's head, keeping the player on their toes at all times. The boss is also one of few to make consistent use of the player's jumping in order to dodge attacks, adding an additional layer of how the player must adapt to achieve victory. The only nitpick I have with Rykard is that the use of the Serpent Hunter diminishes replayability, as having a new unique build each playthrough is something that keeps me coming back to Elden Ring, and this boss doesn't really take advantage of that. But I'm really stretching at this point to find something worth critiquing. Rykard is just one of the best bosses in the game and earns a spot in the top 5. Number 4, Rellana Twin Moon Knight. Some people say combat is like a dance. Graceful movements, reaction to your dance partner deciding your next move, a back and forth, a give and take. And in Elden Ring, there is no greater dance partner than Rellana. Her fight is wholly unique in how it feels. Most of her attacks do very little damage, but her attacks are constant, and her combos are seemingly never ending, each one able to change on the fly based on your positioning, distance, rolling, basically every action. This is the dance of the battle. You are bound to get hit, but you roll with the punches. You see the beginning of the combo, and you try and take control of the dance to make the combo end in a way that you can punish, or heal, or reapply buffs, or disengage altogether. You're given all these options, you just have to know how to dance with Rellana to get to the position you want to be in. And once you understand everything, once you're flowing with smooth movements, you're leading the dance. It doesn't matter if she lands a few hits because you're in control of the fight. It's like jazz. Rellana gives you something and it's up to you to improvise and bring the fight to the finale that you want. It's the nature of this fight that gives it such a high skill ceiling, while being among the most rewarding fights to learn and continuously being among the game's most difficult challenges. I know I'm not really talking about any moves in particular, like yeah, Pontiff Sullivan, Miyazaki's ballsack, whatever. That's not what the fight is about to me, or why I love it so much. All of the moves work in the context of the fight's philosophy. The dance, jazz, it's a glimpse into the evolution of Souls combat beyond the simple dodge-hit formula that has defined these games, and I wouldn't be surprised if Rellana becomes the blueprint for Souls bosses moving forward. Number 3, Midra, Lord of Frenzied Flame. Jori, Elder Inquisitor, was the worst boss in the game. The Abyssal Woods was the worst area in the game. And at the end, your reward is a little ghoul that you kill in 2 hits. What a shit show. Until the greatest cutscene in the game drops, Midra literally rips his own head off using the sword that replaced his spine and unleashing the Lord of the Frenzied Flame, the most feared entity in the game. The literal end of life is staring us in the face, pulsating with unstable heat, and if we lose this fight, the world is doomed. Then the fight begins, and it's an absolute masterpiece. Sword swings and combos, switching up speeds but remaining readable. A wide range of moves, from swings to dagger stabs, to bursts of frenzied flame, to spear attacks, to the fire giant's balls if they were good, to literal nukes, to railgun beams, to frickin' Beyblade attacks, and they're all designed phenomenally, requiring a deep understanding of his full kit to win, while remaining understandable to newcomers. Easy to start, difficult to master. And I think I have mastered this fight. It is just so satisfying to be in that flow state, knowing when and where to dodge, how to capitalize. The only criticism I have of this fight is that I wish he just had more health. With high DPS, you can run through Midra pretty quickly, and literally all I want is just to be able to fight him for longer. Fighting him at level 1 was some of the most fun I had in this game. My damage was low and my dodges needed to be perfect, and Midra was the ideal fight for that circumstance. Midra, Lord of Frenzy Flame, somehow makes it worth it to crouch walk through the Abyssal Woods, and that is a Herculean task that earns him a spot in the top 3. Number 2.
Promised consort, Radahn.
What I am anticipating to be the most controversial placement on this ranking, we have Promised Consort Radahn. I think Radahn has all the makings of a phenomenal boss fight. Attacks that demand both timing and positioning to properly dodge. A wide variety of combos that combine flashy visuals with engaging gameplay. And the lore and presence that make the encounter feel grand. Yes, he has some issues regarding visual clutter, but compared to a lot of other bosses, Miquella's hair is far from the worst thing to be blocking your view. And post-patch, all of his attacks feel very fair and rewarding to avoid. When I learned this would be the final fight of the DLC, I was beyond excited. Prime Radahn, the most hyped up character in the game's lore, and we get to square off against him with the additional power of a god, and the fight lives up to those expectations, as it is, in my opinion, the hardest boss in From Software history. It took me over 11 hours worth of attempts to beat 1 year ago, and now we stand here and I can beat him first try. And to me, that is what I love about FromSoft bosses. They can be nut-punchingly hard, make you want to freak out and quit the game altogether.
No. What? No, I've never seen this attack before. It's like the first boss fight. Where is he? Oh my god! No, I died! What? Are you fucking serious, dude?
But you keep playing. You get a little better every time.
My heart's beating so fast.
And get incredibly close on a few attempts.
No! 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 Oh! No!
Then, when you finally conquer the boss, it's a feeling of satisfaction that you can't find in many other places in this world.
Yes! 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 Finally! Yes!
And then you keep playing. You continue to improve and understand the intricacies of the boss. You develop beyond surviving. You develop beyond winning. You reach the point of mastery. You become the boss. And no boss has ever given me such a sense of pride knowing I've mastered the fight, quite like Promised Consort Radahn.
I just fucking beat Radahn first try. I'm so fucking good at this game. Get on my fucking level. You guys are bums. I'm fucking goated.
Number 1.
Horaloo. Warrior.
And here we are, the best boss in Elden Ring, the truest form of the first Elden Lord, and the strongest tarnished in the lands between. Horaloo, Warrior. Everything about this fight is just superb. From the opening cutscene, showing the soft side of Godfrey, showing that he cared for his son Morgott even when the rest of the world casted him away. Then the intimidation as he brandishes his massive battle-tested axe with a spirit lion on his shoulder, telling us that we came close to brandishing the Elden Ring, but Daddy's home to kick some ass, regain his throne, and there's nothing we can do about it. And his Phase 2 cutscene, where all pleasantries are dropped, and Horaloo lets loose after ripping a lion to shreds with his bare hands, wearing its blood like a coat of paint. Both phases of the fight are incredible. First, Godfrey fights similar to the Shadow version we saw earlier, just ramped up to 11. More complex combos, greater speed and distance closing when dashing around the arena, and a massive, earth-shaking mini phase transition, all adding to an already great moveset that I previously praised. But Phase 2, man, Horaloo comes at you with the spirit of Hulkamania, brother, tossing you around like a ragdoll with multiple grab attacks, throwing hands and feet like the UFC's best strikers, with erratic combos befitting of a wild, untamed warrior, a stark contrast to Godfrey's calculated and dexterous use of forged weapons. And if you thought Godfrey kicking up rocks was impressive, how about Hoaraloo ripping into the earth and literally pulling up arena-wide molten chunks of ground as offense? It's insane how good this fight is. They even pulled off the miracle of making good grab hitboxes. I just can't praise this fight enough, from the character and his lore, to the storyline implications, to the cutscenes, to the game's best designed boss gameplay. Everything was knocked out of the freaking park. Godfrey's strength befits a crown, so how fitting is it that the first Elden Lord can rest on his throne atop this list as the best boss in Elden Ring. And there you have it, every Elden Ring boss ranked worst to best. What do you think of the list? Let me know in the comments below and tell me your favorite boss too. This was a long one, so if you enjoyed, go ahead and subscribe and leave a like. I'd really appreciate it and it helps out the channel. I'll see y'all in the next one.